What was the most fucked up thing to come out in stores that's now discontinued? Let me know in the comments below. Fake snow made from asbestos. Diet pills from Sears catalog in the early 1900s. The first pill was a tapeworm egg. The second pill was a drug to kill the tapeworm. You'd take it when you reached your desired weight. There was a product called the worm getter in the 80s. Basically a rod that shocked the ground outside your house that for some reason caused worms to come out of the ground so you didn't have to buy them yourself. Yeah, there was about 30 deaths attributed to this thing from people shocking themselves, and it was recalled. There was a doll with an eating function that ended up eating young girls' hair. The seller also failed to include how to turn off the doll in the instructions. So you can imagine the horror stories that went down because of that. There was that vibrating Harry Potter broom for kids. Many shoe stores used to have fluoroscope X-ray machines for customers to see how well their foot fit into the shoe they were trying on. They were often unshielded and were highly radioactive. During the First World War, department stores, including Harrods, sold kits containing syringes, needles and tubes of cocaine and heroin. It was promoted as a present for friends on the front line. Shoot up to make life in the trenches more bearable and alleviate the horrors of war. Quote, does the original Four Loko count? I watched some YouTube series about things in the home that could kill you throughout history, and apparently when electricity started being commonplace in homes, nothing was yet regulated and inventors went absolutely buck-fucking wild with the products they put out. The series specifically mentioned a tablecloth with uninsulated electric mesh wiring running through the entire thing which you could plug in. And no, this was not designed to be a heated blanket. It was sold alongside other electrical accessories you could just plug right into the tablecloth. By stabbing the prongs through the fabric and the mesh wiring, this obviously resulted in electrocution and fires. I think my personal favorite was the Atomic Energy Lab, a children's toy that came with actual U-238 and the tools to measure it. The kit also had instructions for how to prospect for uranium ore in your own backyard. My grandfather had a kit for kids to make their own lead soldiers. It came with the molds for the soldiers, a bunch of ingots of lead, and a cooking pot to melt the lead in. Then the child could pour the molten lead into the mold, wait for it to cool, then play with their new toy. What fun! A boating raft that flies behind the boat. Think 20 feet in the air. The year I bought a boat, they were the newest thing with a big video in the store on a big screen TV. I wanted one, but my wife said, hell no. Our kids were about 8 and 11 at the time. The next spring I went in and they were nowhere to be found, and I asked the salesperson about them. She said they were recalled due to injuries. What a shock. They still looked fun as hell. I guess radium jewelry that glowed in the dark and gave people terminal cancer. The liquid bath soaps with plastic micro beads in them. A literal environmental disaster in a bottle. Though Radia Beauty Cream contains thorium and radium. Gingerbread flavored Mountain Dew. Lawn darts. These were a lot of fun, but were also just a terrible accident waiting to happen. Plastic fins and body with a weighted pointy metal tip. I can remember older kids whipping them at the schoolyard fence to see how deep they could go into the 2x12 pressure-treated fence planks. There was a water gun toy that was voice-activated. You would say, fire, like you're shooting a gun, and then it would shoot water. Cue a number of false fire alarms because kids are running around screaming, fire, 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 at the top of their lungs. I remember when you could buy that weird, synthetic marijuana stuff in gas stations. It was right by the register. Apparently that stuff is crazy bad for you, and basically turns you into a zombie. Wow. Chips containing olestra which caused anal leakage. I used to work at a toy store 20 years ago. There was a hard plastic Digimon character, Sunomon. piggy bank that had a large blade-like horn on his head. The blade was surprisingly pointed, firm, and the large body meant that it would usually point upwards if left on the ground, waiting for some clumsy child to impale themselves on it. We used to jab other coworkers with it until it made number 1 on the list of the most dangerous toys made that year. After seeing that article, we put it on a long stick and jabbed each other from a distance. Safety first. Anyone remember pregnant Barbie? You could take her stomach off and there was a tiny baby doll inside. The whole reason that tampons today have warnings about toxic shock syndrome was because of a brand of tampons back in the 70s that were designed to be put in and left in for your entire cycle, which of course made them breeding grounds for all kinds of nasty bacteria. Needless to say, they don't make those anymore. When everything was Shrek themed. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. But back when Shrek 1 and 2 were new, they were insanely popular. Everything was green as a promo. Someone mentioned green ketchup. I remember green Shrek ketchup. I think Shrek waffles. I'm sure there was more promo food dyed green than that. Oh baby, just look up banned toys from the 50s. For EXP super elastic bubble plastic. Make bubbles from the toxic goop you blow into. That fairy wand for kids that had a grotesque image of a girl smiling with the arm blurred. Ephedra. Link. It was an herbal extract used as a weight loss pill that worked by causing your body to turn fat into energy as quickly as possible. Then idiots would sit on their couches, watching TV, while their body was being flooded with energy. The only muscle working was their heart, so yeah. Several people died of heart attacks. I took them when I went snowboarding. You'd be super warm and have endless energy, going down the hill in 15-degree weather without a jacket, leaving a steam trail behind you. It was great. Gotta drink a lot of water though. A totally useful drug that was mis-marketed and mis-used by mis-informed people. Aquadots, beads and glue to make little art pieces. Some coated in GHB, GBL. It's messed up they no longer have Mr. Yuck stickers to protect kids from household cleaners and poisons. I believe gollywogs haven't been selling well for a good while. A few years ago there was massive backlash when some store had t-shirts in the baby, toddler size range that said "Daddy's little slut." I'm not going to search for any kind of link. They were taken off the shelf. But who the fuck thought it was a good idea to make them in the first place? There's been lots of fucked up Barbie dolls. The worst one in my opinion was a brand deal with Oreo cookies. They made a doll with Oreo-themed clothing and accessories, except they made it the only black doll in the line. Grimace. Those glass balls on a rope you would clack together. Great fun until one shattered. In my hometown we have 2 handball teams that plays at the highest level. One team plays in red shirts and one eye white. Therefore we refer to them as the Whites, and the Reds, when powerbanks were new. They did a collab with a store and reelsed a powerbank that had the text, "White Power," referring to the team color OFC. How this got through the club management and the producers I can't understand. They removed Pop Rocks for a while because we as kids would slug a pack down with soda. Great burps. Some parents obviously were freaked out as they thought their kids would explode. They were back on the shelves once it was figured that they were pretty harmless. Lawn darts. Good times, until they weren't. Water Wiggle, Wham-O Manufacturing Co., the maker of Water Wiggle, stated, the recall was occasioned by the death of a 4-year-old child. The youngster was playing with some other children in his backyard with a dismantled Water Wiggle, one from which the bell-shaped head had been removed or had come off. The exposed aluminum nozzle became lodged in his mouth and he drowned. Wham-O stated that it had no knowledge of how or why the toy was dismantled or how the nozzle became lodged in the child's mouth. A Water Wiggle was involved in a similar death of a 3-year-old boy in. Not super fucked up, but an interesting death trap. Honda made this three-wheeled kick scooter in the 70s called the Kick and Go. Nifty little thing with a lever on the back that you pushed with your foot to go faster. Only problem was you could get them going really fast if you just kept kicking. More so than a regular scooter where you have to kick off the ground. They apparently sold like hot cakes in the early 70s. Until two kids died on them in 1976 and they pulled them from shelves. Olestra. The stuff they put in potato chips that cause anal leakage. And they even had to put a warning on the package about anal leakage. And I'm sorry I'm saying it so much, but you only get so many chances to use the words anal leakage. The evil stick. Pretty, magic wand. Marketed towards children. But if you peeled off the shiny foil, it revealed a picture of a witch cutting themselves in. Laughed menacingly. Anybody remember Balzac? If not, check this out. As a UK schoolboy, trips to France were an excuse to buy explosives. I don't know if they still sell them or not. But bangers, as we called them, were like little sticks of explosives where you lit the fuse and retired to a safe distance. All the souvenir shops sold them. They came in different sizes and strengths. Once you got you bangers home, you blew up as much stuff as you could. Apples still on the tree were good. Toys were fun too. The more fucked up kids would explode live frogs, etc. This was in the 1980s. I wonder why Pepsi Clear didn't last. It was my fave soda of all time. I kind of wish I could try a new Coke again and see if it was really as disastrously nasty as PPL sometimes refer to. I remember drinking it several times, but of course it's been too long to remember the exact taste. I also suspect a lot of that may have been psychological. But I'm not gonna order a decades-old can of new Coke off eBay to find out. Babies. Black licorice candies that were little racist caricatures. They were sold here in Canada into the 1990s. I remember being 12 and being shocked by them. Super surprised anyone would import them, much less order them. Slap bracelets and silly bands. The slap bracelets were made of recycled tape measures and wrapped in cheap fabric. So one to many slaps and you'd get a small cut. They were huge in school before they were banned due to being distracting. Silly bands were colorful. Tiny little bracelets that when left in an idle state would take the shape of an animal. They were perfectly harmless until some idiot mother heard from her friend's sister's landlord that the colors involved were representative of sexual acts. And, in short order, they were banned across the nation. Radioactive water that was sold as an energy drink. Roddy Thor. I remember buying a can of Nescafe coffee that heated up in the can. It was amazing, but likely an ecological disaster. Don't think it was around long. Or possibly it was a dream. Clackers. Balls on a string you clacked together. Made out of polymer. Basically a weapon. I know I conked my head a few times. Coca-Cola Life. The label was green. And it was sweetened with stevia. It was everywhere in my city in 2013. On TV. On billboards. On the newspaper. Magazines. You name it. Everywhere I went I'd see a Coca-Cola truck advertising it and giving away free samples. It was the most disgusting thing I'd ever drunk. A friend of mine approached the truck with me, got his sample, and couldn't help but spit the beverage. It was that awful. Coca-Cola Life lasted a little over 3 weeks. I wouldn't say it was the most fucked up thing. But those Barbie dolls with cameras within them. They were kinda creepy. Cellulose nitrate spectacles. Cellulose nitrate frames were popular in the 1950s. Cellulose nitrate is a highly flammable. Not only would they combust when in contact with a source of ignition and continue to burn, but they sometimes formed nitric acid when in contact with human sweat. Some wearers received facial burns this way. There used to be a cage that would hang out your apartment window that you'd put your baby in so they could get fresh air without leaving the apartment. Furby. Those things creep me out. In 1998, Sony had to recall hundreds of thousands of camcorders because they could allow users to see through clothes. It was when you added a popular filter to the camera that the world suddenly turned into a nudist colony. After the Japanese magazine ran the issue about the bug, it created a feeding frenzy among journalists around the world. Then, in our typical moral depravity, the demand for cameras with night shots soared. Many of them sold for $2,500 instead of the original $600. Unsurprisingly, the camera opened up a Pandora's box of legal problems and privacy issues. Reporters found 12 different websites featuring peeping Tom videos and pictures of women who'd been out living a normal life. Sony immediately announced a recall of 700,000 cameras. It was the largest recall in company history. All of their vendors were frozen from distributing the handy cams. Sony threatened swift disciplinary action against anyone who attempted to profit from the increased demand. What was the most fucked up thing to come out in stores that's now discontinued? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more.